Hi, I'm Richard from DPReview, and I'm here with Eric from Olympus, who's going to talk us through the E-M1 Mark II.
Thanks for having me. So yes, we did a development announcement this Monday on the E-M1 Mark II. As far as the camera itself, obviously it's a replacement to our other flagship model. So we can still discuss, mobility as far as one of the major claims with Micro Four Thirds is just the fact that I have this incredible equipment, speed and performance at a fraction of the size and weight. So as a working professional, less wear and tear on myself, and also allows me to bring more gear with me. So as far as the product, you're looking at a 20.4 megapixel camera. One of the major upgrades that you're going to find is going to be in the realm of speed. So this is capable with we'll start with electronic shutter. This is capable of 60 frames per second. Now that's at full resolution and RAW. So, to the two SD cards, especially if you had a UHS-2, high-speed card in there, you're talking about a lot of frames being captured at 60 frames per second. With autofocus, so with continuous autofocus tracking on, you're talking 18 frames per second. So, putting that into the market, and then what you're getting for something this size and weight, quite a substantial increase, over its predecessor. And then even then, it's like, okay, so we talked about 60, we talked about 18, let's talk about the mechanical. The mechanical shutter is 15 frames per second. And if I turn that on, even with this microphone, let's see, just open this up. So even in this dimly lit room, of course, this is our new 1.2 lens, which certainly does help. But it's exciting to talk about the fact that we get 60 with electronic, but also still be able to say 15 frames per second, with the mechanical shutter.
And what is the camera capable in terms of video? Because if you can shoot 60 frames a second with the electronic shutter, that's got to open up opportunities for video, hasn't it?
Without question. So obviously we've had a steady progress towards the working videographer and what their demands would be. This now will be Cinema 4K, so that would be at 24 progressive, as well as a bit rate of 237 megabits per second. So as far as the capabilities there, this is a powerhouse for video. As well as for video, you're also, as far as the HDMI output. So with HDMI output, that is a clean output. There are numerous settings for that. So even if you weren't going to be recording to a higher speed card inside the camera, recording directly to an SSD through a third-party product is obviously an option as well. So videographers will be extremely pleased with this.
And can you continue to use the camera stabilization when you're shooting video?
Yes, and that actually would segue into the 5-axis sync image stabilization. So currently our 300 millimeter had an image stabilized element inside the lens. Well, this Monday we OPR'd the 12 to 100. So this 12 to 100 IS Pro has that same technology of image stabilization inside the lens. When that's paired and the two are in sync with the 5-axis inside the E-M1 Mark II, you're talking about 6.5 steps of stabilization without use of a tripod. When that power comes over to the video for the movie image stabilization, this is removing most of the need for, any type of steadying device or third-party expensive pieces of equipment for that. So yes, the image stabilization, especially with a lens like this being a 12 to 100 f4 in a Pro, in weather resistant, the entire range of the lens is high quality, sharp, and usable. So yes.
One of the things we've heard from a lot of manufacturers at this show are the challenges of dealing with this much data and the cost to batteries and the heat that gets generated by throwing these large amounts of data around. How do you handle that on this camera?
Now with this camera, obviously the new battery, 37% more power. But as far as the actual processing, there's actually dual quad cores. So there's actually 4 processors, or 4 CPUs, and then 4 processors just for handling, a separate one just for autofocus, a separate one just for handling of image data. So it's just the circuitry of this camera and the processors, CPUs, they're all, twice the amount of RAM as its predecessor. Really, it's just a powerhouse. So we had to really engineer that problem into the camera as far as being able to overcome that.
When the E-M1 was launched, it was very much promoted as being the Micro Four Thirds camera for existing 4/3 users. The E-M1 Mark II seems to move an awful long way beyond that. What kind of customers do you have in mind when designing this camera?
This would be, everything from a photo enthusiast all the way up to a working pro. Even as far as pros in the sports category, as far as being able to get that rate of fire, to get that speed of autofocus, the ability and the different options for tracking, and also our new options as far as autofocus limiting, so saying I want from this distance to this distance, and then having that be assignable to lens function buttons like on this. This camera is ready for the working professional, regardless of which genre they work in.
That sounds excellent. We really look forward to getting one in to be able to have a go at reviewing it and try and think of some challenges to try and put it through its paces. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.